right, folks, welcome to The Art of the Pitch. I'm Jonathan Maberry, for those who don't know who I am. To give you a quick background, I'm a traditional writer. I've been publishing nonfiction since 1978 and fiction since 2006. And I'm going to give some of my credentials only because they are relevant to the topic, not because I feel like bragging. I have sold 56 novels so far. I'm writing my 50th. I have 6 sold that I haven't yet written. I've written and sold 152 short stories, 27 nonfiction books, 24 anthologies, 2 of which are debuting here. One is the Weird Tales 100th anniversary, and the other is, we're debuting on Friday. It's an anthology based on my thriller series. And also 16 short story collections, a board game, and other stuff. I'm in a weird position where everything I have pitched has sold. Now, that doesn't make me better than anyone else by a mile. What it does is it suggests that I've figured something out about how to do it. When I first, we're going to talk about how, a little bit about finding agents as well as pitching books, because that plays into it. When I first wrote I had a novel that I wanted to sell. Nonfiction books are mostly college textbooks. You didn't need an agent for those. When I first did fiction, my first novel, I asked friends who had agents what I should look for in terms of getting an agent. And I had several people give me the same advice, and the advice absolutely sucked. The advice was, and I'm quoting them, look for a low-level or a brand-new agent because they're the only ones who are likely to take a flyer on an unpublished writer, unpublished in fiction. And I'm thinking, well, so the takeaway from that is, I assume I'm going to be mediocre at best, so I might as well embrace that and shoot low. And I thought, I have no proof that my books won't sell. No proof at all. I have no proof whether they're good or bad, except for my agent's word on it. So why then, or actually before I have an agent, why then should I shoot low? I went the opposite direction. I made a list of the 10 top agents in my field, and the genre of my first novel was horror genre, but the subgenre was urban gothic or American horror, small town horror. And my plan was, I figure I'll shoot for the top. If that doesn't work, I can always take a step down. But why start at the bottom and try to climb up over people? It just doesn't make sense. If when I did that, if all all those 10 queries came back as rejections, I would have then retooled the query and maybe taken a half step down. But I believe audacity sells. I really do. I've always thought that. The old saying that you fail 100% of the time that you don't try is, literally taped above my computer in my office, because I've tried a lot of weird things over the years and got them partly because other people didn't try. So we'll get to that. So what I did first is I spent days writing a killer query letter. How many of you actually had to write a query letter? All right. Generally, it sucks because it's not something that we're trained for. If we go to school for creative writing or we simply follow a path of creative writing, that's not in that skill set. It's marketing copy, it's advertising copy, it's a sales pitch. And it's unfair of us to have to do that, but the gods of publishing are like, fair? Who promised fair? So I learned to do it. The query, and I want to give you guys a website to write down because there's cool stuff. It's my name, Jonathan, look at the spelling, Jonathan Maberry, M-A-B, not M-A-Y-B, don't put the Y in the middle, jonathanmaberry.com. On that page, on that website, and if you look at the menu bar, there is a sub-page called Free Stuff for Writers. And it is PDFs of all kinds, including one of my queries. Now that query that's up there has been tweaked by about 24 top professional agents and editors, friends of mine, who I said, tweak this so that what I put up is an example of the kind of business letter that you want to see come across your desk. And that's what that is. And that's important to remember with a query. A lot of folks write a query that's basically a love letter to their book. That could not matter less, because your agent is not a potential fan. Your agent is a potential business partner. So if you're writing basically fan mail to yourself because you love your book so much and your mom loves your books and your people in your support, in your peer critique group love your books, that's all wonderful, but it doesn't sell anything. You have to tell them why the book is going to work in business terms. So that query is an example. But I'll give you a quick idea of what is in the query. The one that's up is actually the query for my fourth novel, which my agent asked me to do because I was shifting genres and she needed a query to go with her. But it starts off with hook. The hook in this query opens with, if you have to kill the same terrorist twice in 1 week, there's either something wrong with the world or something wrong with your skills. And there's nothing wrong with Joe Ledger's skills. That's the opening. Now, it's also a variation of the opening. It's actually the entire first chapter of the book, except in the book, it's first person rather than third. That's a hook. There's enough intriguing information in there to make you want to at least read the next paragraph. And that's what you need. You need to get them to the next paragraph. So the next paragraph explains a little of what the world is, and it's a brief paragraph. I don't go into the details. I don't give, except for Joe Ledger, I don't give a lot of character names. In fact, I don't think I give any other character names, because it's information the agent doesn't need in order to appreciate the potential value of the book. So I just talk about the setup, the big concept setup of the book. And then from there I go and say, this book would appeal to readers of. And then I start naming, for the Joe Ledger thrillers, I named like James Rollins' Sigma Force books and Jeremy Robinson's Chess Team and a few others, because I wanted to show that this book would please readers who are dedicated to not only a specific writer or two, but writers who are making marks in a genre. And James Rollins, since Michael Crichton died, James Rollins is the #1 selling writer in the weird science thriller genre. All his books debut at #1 in ebook, audio, hardcover, and then again in paperback. And by the way, for years, he was a struggling writer who self-publishes books, and they were great books. He couldn't make enough money to live on, and he changed. He decided to switch genres, and that seemed to work for him. Anyway, so after the paragraph about these books would satisfy, and a little note about that, I do not at any point say my books are better than, or even as good as somebody else's. Egotism is not a good sales thing. What I'm saying is those readers would likely respond to this. And what that, in business terms, what that says is, I recognize that there is an established demographic that likes this kind of book, as evidenced by writers who are continually successful within that genre, whose books sell well and stay on the bookshelf after the few weeks of the initial buzz. They stay on the bookshelf. They have that life to them. And I carefully selected the ones I wanted to include there. Some people will tell you not to include other books in your query. They are wrong. Every agent I have talked to who is a player in the business likes that, because it immediately sets their expectations, because all agents specialize. To one degree or another, they specialize. So if you're just sending a thriller pitch to them, they don't know if that thriller is their zone. Like, for example, somebody who represents legal thrillers or medical thrillers may not have the editors who publish science fiction thrillers, horror thrillers, weird science thrillers, might not have those editors in speed dial. They might not have relationships with those editors. And an agent's effectiveness is only as good as the agents with whom they have relationships. So I wanted to give her examples, give the agents who are looking at examples of books that are in my genre, and it helps narrow it down to what kind of book. And the way I make sure that I don't send a query like that to just anyone, and this is the only thing I'm ever going to recommend writers subscribe to, is publishersmarketplace.com. If you're not familiar with it, it's not all that valuable to subscribe to it if you're not out there about to pitch a book. Publishersmarketplace.com. What it does, it tracks about 95 to 98% of all book deals in traditional publishing. And it even has a scale that kind of gives you an idea of where those, what kind of books, like a nice deal, or I forget what the terminology is, like one would be books that are like $1,000 to $5,000 advance, and all the way up to major, which is above $250,000, and so on. Each deal listing is a single sentence. It's a little run-on sentence, and it lists, it's something about the author, something about the book, and then by. So, for example, if it was one of my books, it would be by Sarah Crow to, say, Michael Homler at St. Martin's Griffin. The by is the agent. And those names are clickable links to their page on Publishers Marketplace and with links to their agency pages that show not only what they prefer and how they prefer to be approached, it also shows their sales record. If you hear of an agent who represents, say, thrillers, or young adults, better example. So my agent is one of the top young adult agents in the business. She's almost always number 1 or number 2 every month in terms of her effectiveness. But if you were to send her, say, a young adult sports book, I doubt she would even read the query. As soon as she saw the word sports, she would toss the query out and generally not respond to it. And you know why? Because it specified what kind of young adult and other books she represents. And if you didn't do your homework by finding out exactly what she represents, by not only the genre, but the subgenre, which is far more important, then you're wasting her time by querying an agent that doesn't represent those books. So you want to build a list that is precise rather than scattershot. And Publishers Marketplace is a really useful way of doing that. And so that's by. The 2 is the editor who bought it. And you also go to that editor's page and you find out about the imprint or the house that they work for. And again, you can see what deals they've made, and therefore you get an idea of what they're looking for. So I wrote a really good query. I spent days on it. I sent it to 10 agents. I got 6 requests for partials or fulls. And I've talked to each of those agents since. I actually talked to them during the process, but now that I'm established, it's more easier for me to go and have a more frank conversation about their reaction to the query. The fact that it talked business rather than just praising the book was a big thing. The fact that I gave the names of contemporary successful authors in my genre were big. And I always add a little sentence in my queries somewhere that says, specifically to the agent, your own work with, and I'll name a couple of people they've represented who were in my genre. And now now the agent knows that the query is not just a mass-produced one that goes out to everyone, but is in fact targeted to each agent. Now mind you, I sat down and did 10 versions of that at the same time. I tweaked it for each one, but I still had to do the research to make sure I'm sending it to the right people, and that mattered. So I got 6 offers to send materials in, and I got 4 offers of representation. Now, in that case, and I know it's not typical, but a lot of it, I think, has to do with the strength of the query, and then also the fact that the book is clearly positioned for a specific subgenre, and a subgenre that's active. My first novel was, as I said, American Gothic. I pitched it as a horror novel. Little side note, when I finally got my agent, the first thing she told me is, and this is 2005, end of 2004, she said, we can't pitch it as horror. And I said, why not? She said, well, at the moment, horror is a bad word that will kill a pitch. Kind of like steampunk is now. If you pitch a major publisher with the word steampunk in there, it's dead on arrival. They just won't ever ask for it. It's a weird thing. Small presses will, or smaller agents will, but the top ones won't because they've had so many big ticket steampunk didn't sell. Well, back in 2004, because of the rise of the slasher films and a couple of decades before that, and around that era, you had a lot of what they call torture porn, Hostel and Saw and all that. More people see movies than read books, and therefore more people equate horror with the visceral stuff, misogyny, just random violence and stuff, and they have the wrong idea of what horror was. At the time, at that point, what was selling were supernatural thrillers. Now, we didn't change a word of the book. All we did was change what subgenre it was when we pitched it. And by the way, as we go along, if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. I know there's a mic back there. Should they go back to the mic? Is that mic wired there?
It should be on.
Well, no, in terms of we couldn't move it forward, I assume. Okay. Anyway, so if you have questions, very talented people with machines will help you. you want to make sure that the query is selling the book you've written, and it's okay to change a little bit of the labeling, the genre labeling, because genre labels were really something that kind of kicked in about 30, well, probably I guess in the 90s more than anything else. It's easier for the trade salespeople to market the books if they have a specific genre. Bookstores have categories. They've built it on what Barnes & Noble mostly did because it was the biggest chain, a little less so to Borders when it was out. But it doesn't matter to us until we're pitching, and really what we're pitching is the subgenre more than the genre. On that page I gave you the email address, I gave you the website for, there are also lists of different categories: romance, science fiction, horror, western, so on, and their subcategories and what those subcategories are. So it kind of helps you figure out what it is you're pitching. Most of us don't really know, a lot of people don't really know what subgenre they've written. And that can be really, it's a really important thing to know, that you're pitching something that has a very specific market, because you're pitching to the market, sales. Okay, now I can't see the clock anymore, so.
15.
Okay, all right, okay, cool. For the people watching on Facebook, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't apply to what you're doing, but here we go. Anyway, so the query letter is, it's important. Most people don't get to meet the agents that they're pitching to. One of the reasons I like writers' conferences is they often have agents at the conferences. You can talk to them. You can actually book yourself for pitch sessions. And we're going to talk about how to kill at a pitch session. I love face-to-face pitching. In fact, when I got the offers of representation from those 4 agencies, I lived in Philly at the time, they were in New York, I made a point, and I was broke, so I had to borrow the money to do it. I made a point of going to New York and sitting down with each of them, taking them to lunch or coffee, whatever, getting to know them as people, and letting them get to know me as a person, not just a name on a query. I like that face-to-face thing. I have that actually influences my business now. I won't do business with anyone I don't meet face-to-face, or at very least a Zoom. I've started using Zoom more because of COVID, and now a lot of agents are doing Zoom stuff. The whole idea of a pitch is to get them to want to read the book. And then, of course, it has to stand on its writing. We're not going to be talking about the quality of writing in this, because that's other programs, other speakers. I'm talking about getting them to want to read it, and the query letter will do that. At writers' conferences, they give you the option of doing a face-to-face pitch. And we are going to talk about how to do that, because crafting a face-to-face pitch also helps you figure out how to write your query, helps you also talk about how to talk about your book. Most people, and it's funny because I ask folks, so what do you write? And either they say like a short sentence, which tells me nothing, or they want me to get a comfortable seat because they're going to give me the entire synopsis of their friggin' book, and I will set fire to the room and escape in the smoke. Because anytime anyone asks you, what's your book about, trust me, they do not want the entire plot of your book. I don't care if they're your best friend or your relative. They may fake it, they may lie. They don't want to hear the plot of your entire book. They want a couple of sentences. What's your book about? And that's really key. So to prepare for that, there's something I really recommend. It's called the essential statements lists. I recommend to each person make 2 lists. One, say maybe anywhere from 6 to 12 entries on each list. One starts with, my book is about, and then you finish that sentence in different ways. And then the other one is, my book is not about. So example, I wrote a book called Rotten Ruin. It's growing up 14 years after the zombie apocalypse, being made into a film right now. Yay. That when I talk about that, one of the things I say is my book is not about how many zombies you can kill. It's not about blood and gore. It's about the value of human life. It's about what it means to be brave in a terrifying world. It's about the relationship between brothers when they first have different worldviews, and can they get together and see the world as it is. It's about respect for the dead, even if the dead are monsters who are trying to kill you. You still have to respect the person they were, so that you don't do anything that is humiliating. In a lot of the zombie movies, I'm a big zombie movie fan, they have the zombie deaths sometimes in comical ways. And I've always been offended by that, because that was a person who died because of a disease or an attack or something. And just because their body is, now becoming a disease vector, aggressive disease vector, the respect should be for the person who died. So that, so I start talking about what my book was about and what was not about, and then people get it. Now, when I make these lists, they don't really go into which character does what, character names. I don't even go into major plot points most of the time. I'm talking about the heart and soul of a book, the essential statements. With those lists, those are great. But we're going to play a quick game. How many of you have done a verbal pitch with an agent? Okay. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Most people are shaking their head. We're going to go over how to enjoy it. So we're going to play a little game here. I need a genre. Raise a hand. Somebody raise your hand. Give me a suggestion. Yeah. Thriller. Okay, good start. I need a subgenre. What kind of thriller? Somebody give me a suggestion.
Domestic.
What's that?
Domestic.
Domestic thriller. Okay. Haven't done that one before. Character, gender, male or female?
Female.
Okay. Name. Somebody give me a first name.
Laurel.
Laurel. Okay. Somebody give me a last name.
Jones.
Laurel Jones. Okay. Simple. Is Laurel an adult?
Yes.
Now, yes. And I'm glad you said that because the thriller genre for kids is this big. Thriller genre for adults is massive. So she's adult. I need a title now for this thriller. It's a domestic thriller with an adult female protagonist. Somebody just.
Shape of Lies.
What is it?
The Shape of Lies.
The Shape of Lives?
Lies.
Shape of Lies. Ooh, I like that. Shape of Lies. Now, I need one more thing. I need a central crisis. What's the central crisis in the book? Jurassic Park, dinosaurs are genetically engineered, they escape. That's the central crisis. Give me a central crisis. Raise a hand. Give me a
Crazy husband.
crazy husband. Okay.
Chemical plant, poisoning water system.
Well, we got crazy husband, so we're good there. If it was a weird science,
Anybody can do crazy husband.
yeah. Well, if it was a weird science thriller, I'd go with yours. Okay, so I'm gonna pitch this book to you. Okay, so it's domestic thriller, female, Laurel Jones. Okay, Shape of Lies. Laurel Jones believed everything in the marriage vows. Everything. She was optimistic. She was in love with the love of her life. She absolutely believed till death do us part, all the things better for worse, all of that. She believed it. And for the first 3 years of her marriage, it seemed like her husband did too. Because they were the happy couple that was so freaking happy that, people, like, oh my God, will you stop just like glomming on each other all the time? That kind of relationship. Visible passion, visible love, little hearts floating in the air every time they looked at each other. That's how it started. But that's not real world. We don't necessarily get the happy ending. We don't necessarily get the forever after. And we don't always necessarily marry the person we think we're marrying. Sometimes we marry someone who has secrets, and we all have secrets. Every single person has secrets. Even the good guys have secrets they don't want anyone to know. But what are the secrets of somebody who isn't at all good? Laurel Jones is a nice person. She's a corporate lawyer. She loves her job. She helps small companies thrive. Her husband is a investigator for the law firm, and he goes out there and he makes sure that they're only setting up deals with people who are really, really cool, like really trustworthy. Except that's not what he's doing at all. For him, it's a cover. It's been deep cover for him for a long time. Bobby Jones is not the man that she fell in love with. Bobby Jones is not the person she married. Bobby Jones is a scout for a cartel. Here's the thing about that. This is a real thing, there are scouts for cartels. They look for new venues, new neighborhoods, new communities, new businesses where they can begin to intrude. If a cartel gets, for example, involved in a community building project, they get information about the community. They often get the names and addresses of people. They can use that to research people and find out about them and begin targeting who are the best people to sell stuff to. This is real. This is real world. This is not fiction. This is real world. Bobby knows this because that's what he does. He married her because she is a corporate lawyer who works with small businesses and small communities, and she sets up libraries and schools and sells the real estate for all of this, and does the legal work for all of this, works with realtors and so on. But Bobby is using her for these contacts. And she didn't know this. She had no idea until that one time, the one single time, when he didn't shut off his computer. He usually puts it in sleep mode when he leaves his office, and he didn't. And her computer was down in her car, so she just wanted to log on for 2 seconds and research something. So she sits down, the screensaver hadn't engaged yet, and saw the message that's on there. That bitch still believes it, is what it said. That bitch still believes it. And the message was to someone that she knows, she's met her husband, golfing with and so on. And she scrolled up, and the conversation was about her. Now she's wondering, what's this all about? They hadn't had a fight recently. What is it she's supposed to believe? And she kept scrolling up through the conversation, and she started looking at other conversations Bobby had with other people. And she found out that her husband is a scout for the cartels. And she is cover. She's not beloved. This is a woman who's 5 months pregnant with their child, and she is, just being used. Just being used. How would you feel if the person you love turned out not only to be a bad person, but a really seriously bad person who is using you, that all you are worth to them is your access to business, casual sex, because husband and wife all lovey-dovey. There's no part of their relationship now that is not violative, not intrusive. And he is using her. So now, this young, idealistic lawyer, this pregnant woman, this betrayed wife, has to find a way to dig into his life, to peel back the layers, to find what he really is. And she starts finding bad things out early on, and she has to play the game of being the person that he thinks she is until she can actually get the goods to tear him down. Not just to arrest him. She wants to destroy him for what he's doing to her. A story like this, Shape of Lies, a story like this is not fantastic and out there. We see stories like this in the news. There are people who follow true crime. Well, this is as close to true crime as we can get and still be fiction and still be a thriller that will still appeal to the thriller market, those readers, because it is so close to what's in the news that it's going to be hard for the readers to tell where the nonfiction on which the book is built ends and the fiction begins. That is her job. That is her life goal, and that is also what's breaking her heart every single day. The Shape of Lies is a 120-word, fast-paced thriller that starts with love, hits heartbreak at full speed, and then turns into a devious hunt for a killer. She needs to be as undercover as he is. He's using her. She's going to use her relationship with him to get as much evidence as possible to tear down him and every single one he works with. All right, so that's a verbal pitch. Now, I just made this story up. I would write that story, by the way. The thing about a verbal pitch is, I want you to, how much time do we have left? We have 15 minutes. We spent about 5 minutes. I want you to tell me, based on how I pitched it, what I did, because there is some theatrics involved in it. There's body language and tone and also word structure and other things. What did you pick up? So raise a hand and yes, over there.
You seem to actually care that we know this is fiction, you've got some distance and you're clear about what's happening in the story, but you're pretty engaged with it.
Yeah, I mean, if May as the author was not outraged by this happening to a person and characters become real people to us, I would be outraged on her behalf. And I do care for her, the child she's carrying, and her ability to survive it. You know, the book may end, if I were to write this, with him getting arrested and maybe some of the cartel folks being taken down. I want to know. I actually have an emotional connection to a character to know they're going to be okay after the book ends. So yeah, my passion for the character, my empathy for the character is, you know, has to be in there when I'm talking about it. And there'll be different flavors of that no matter what I'm pitching, whether it's a horror novel, science fiction, you know, fantasy. I'm going to pick a character and I'm going to walk through the pitch with that character so that character is the focus. I only gave names of 2 characters in the story. You know, this implies many others. I didn't talk about his cartel and what it is and so. All he said is that he's with a cartel. We know that. Because people know the word, I don't need to over-explain. So it allows me to keep it short. What else?
Conviction on your storyline. You stayed with that sort of storyline through your entire pitch.
Yep.
Made it from the embryonic stage of marriage all the way down to now, hey, I'm going to kill this guy. And you stayed true to your conviction. You described all of those steps.
Yeah, and this is important because as we were putting these things together, I'm starting to, in my head, write what I think the essential statements are for this book. Because I always do that with any new project. I start thinking of those essential statements. So I have a clear path to tell that story. What I don't want to do is wander off into parenthetical comments about scenes and characters that I like. Like, I don't want to, you know, much as I love dogs, I don't want to hear about her dog unless that dog has a really significant role. And that dog's not going to have a significant role in this story. If it was a cozy, maybe, but not in a mainstream thriller of this kind. So you also have to adjust your frame of mind for this to follow that story. So yes, you had a question? Observation?
Dramatic pause, tone, inflection, and tie in the real world.
Yeah, so what he said is I use dramatic pause, tone, and inflection to tie in the real world. This is a bit of theater. Now, I was, as a child, absolutely introverted. I grew up in a really abusive household and everything. I was an introverted kid. I got involved in theater, did a lot of musical theater and so on, to A, lose my Philadelphia accent, which is an awful accent, and B, to be confident enough, you know, when you're on stage, you embody another character, and that allows you then to be that person. That person may be stronger, more capable. They know what to say because the lines are written and so on. And then I kind of migrated some of that over to when I talk about my books. I am in the mind of the character and in the story, and that allows me to talk, you know, more comfortably with it. But I do put in pauses. If I say something I want someone to think about, I might have a pause there, a dramatic beat, just as I would in my fiction. You know, if you have something in a story and you bury it in the middle of a long paragraph, they're going to skim, or it's just too much scenery going by as they're reading the paragraph. But if you break the paragraph off and just put that note there, that's a pause. They remember it. It makes them have to react to it a little more visually with their eyes as they're reading, but also mentally. It becomes a note in their head. And that's what I do when I try to talk about this. I don't just roll on. Any other quick comments? You and then you and then you. And then.
You concentrated on the character's why, the story. The how is going to go, you gave her why, her character arc, her emotional arc, which is going to be the central part of the story, like you said at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Give the why you're doing this or what the
Because
central conflict is, not the details.
yeah, the why of it is more compelling than the specifics of resolution. If I was writing a synopsis, it'd be different. I would have to tell the whole thing, but I want them intrigued enough to want to say, send that to me. Okay, you and then you.
It's essentially a short monologue of you.
It is. Yes.
So it's really performative. And it only like seeps into a little bit of the second act. It's not really, you're only explaining, the rest is.
Right.
So you're like, if this is the full storyline, you're just inciting event to like where it starts to kind of.
The point at which she then becomes the active protagonist as opposed to the victim protagonist. So yeah, that's the point at which the story's going to catch fire, and I don't need to discuss beyond that. All I need to say is that this is what she's doing.
The mission.
It's the mission, and it is also the compulsion to follow that mission. It has to be that emotional.
You're also establishing credibility by emphasizing that this kind of thing really does happen in the real world.
Sure.
You're piling on the scares by saying this could happen to
Right. Now, if we were doing an epic fantasy, I would have pitched it differently, you know. But, and that's the thing, you've got to be able to roll with it. I know we only have 10 minutes. I want to explain some things that'll help you get to the point where you can do this yourself. Now, notice there's one other thing that nobody mentioned. I did, except for one time when I had to remind myself of the title, I did not look down at my page. I looked at, you know, and if it was a one-on-one conversation with an agent, I would be sitting there looking at them. If, you know, I have taken a lot of pitches because I edit anthologies, I edit Weird Tales magazine, I've taken a lot of pitches. If somebody sits down to do a pitch and reads at it, I have immediately lost interest in anything they will ever say. If I don't want someone to read at me, I want to have a conversation with a human being. I want them to be real, know it enough to read, yes?
So I'm an actor.
Yeah.
You know that. So, so this would be something that I can do, but for authors.
I'm
know,
getting there.
What's that aspect? Like, should those authors consider taking a little bit of like an acting one-on-one situation?
Yeah, they could, but there's an exercise they can do with their writer friends that gets the same thing across. It's not that you should memorize a script for this. You should memorize the basic, you should know you're the expert, the sole expert in the world on your book. If you have the essential comments you know, already memorized, then you can kind of make up and vary this based on the reactions you're seeing. If you're seeing them looking bored, checking their phone, then you need to maybe shift a little more in direction of the action that's in the story, that's implied in the story. If they're leaning forward and it looks like they want to ask questions, you might want to tailor you get to the end of your pitch sooner so they can ask questions. You read the audience. You can't read the audience if you're reading from the page. You have that person there. Talk to them. Now, here's the way to do it, and boy, we've got very little time. This is usually a 2-hour workshop, I'm just saying. So, with you and your writer friends, whether they're face-to-face with you in person or on the other end of Zoom or Facebook call, what you do, you start off by pitching a book that you love. So, for example, there are some novels I have read a dozen times. The Haunting of Hill House, one of my favorite novels. Ray Bradbury gave me a copy one year for Christmas. I read that book every year. I can pitch that book right now. I can pitch Lord of the Rings. I can pitch a whole bunch of books that I have read right now without having notes. What I do is I suggest that you start off pitching to each other books that you have read, books that you know. Now, it does a couple things. First, it takes the burden off of you, so you're not pitching your own stuff, so there's not that sense of, oh my God, they're going to hate what I'm saying, or I'm going to stumble. You're pitching something you know. Like, how many here have read the Lord of the Rings books? How many of you think you could do a 3-minute pitch on Lord of the Rings? Most of your hands should go up if you read the damn book. Pick the book, Harry Potter. It doesn't matter what the book is. A book that you can talk about, that you know, that you can talk about for 3 to 5 minutes. Practice that with your friends. You can spend weeks doing dozens of books. You can even take turns pitching the same book to each other. Long before you start practicing your own pitch. Because by the time you get to practice your own pitch, you should be comfortable with the body language, the eye contact, how your voice sounds. You should record them so you see how your voice sounds. I know that in real life, I tend to talk really, really fast. I slow down for pitches. It's one of the things I learned in acting. Just because I know the lines in my head doesn't mean I need to say them like, blah, blah, blah. So you slow down. You look for the pauses. When you're pitching this, practicing the pitches, play them back, listen to them. You don't necessarily need to critique each other's pitches unless they have done something, that you feel they can work with. Like if they say too many times, or if they're not making eye contact. That's the sort of feedback you can give, because they can immediately turn that into an action step and do it differently the next time. Criticizing each other in negative ways, that was not a good pitch, something like that, is of absolutely no value. I do not believe in negative feedback. What I believe is constructive feedback with suggestions for action steps. Because you don't want somebody going out of there feeling like a failure. You want them going out of there feeling, oh my God, this is cool, this is fun. And this exercise gets to be fun. Then you can do a version like this. You can even try this where, it's genre, subgenre, character, gender, character name, the market, adult, middle grade, or YA, title, and central crisis. You can just make stuff up just like we did here and just, kind of braille your way through it. Have a little fun with it, You can be silly with it too. Silly's fine. I had somebody at one of these workshops suggest It was a comedy horror thriller picture book about a zombie bear. All right? That would never sell, by the way. Actually, I say that, but it's probably not true. It probably would sell.
Cocaine bear still.
Yeah, but not the kids. But there have been, horror story, Banicula, the rabbit vampire thingy. So you can do it. But the idea is to have fun with it for a while before you then try your own pitch. And when you do your own pitch, I recommend that you maybe, before you do it with your friends, you just do it in a camera a couple times, video, you can have your phone, video record it, play it back, just so you can critique yourself. And again, you shouldn't be critical and nasty about your own performance. You should be saying, okay, I did that, next time I'll do this, rather than I did that wrong, and next time I'll do it right. That's bad thinking. It just gets in your way. If I did something that I don't think is the best way to do it in a pitch, then I'll just simply try it again and work it in to be, to do it in a more effective manner. That's it. And then you go do this for real. Then you do this for real. And we only have, 4 minutes left?
Yeah.
Anybody have any quick questions, by the way, on this? Yeah, over there and then over there.
Does it work for nonfiction as well?
I've sold 27 nonfiction books doing this. Mind you, I sold them to publishers, but it was still the same basic premise.
Can I ask a part B on that?
What's that?
Can I ask a part B on that?
Yeah.
I was told that the best thing is to find an agent and pitch it first before you begin writing the book, so that when the agent gives feedback, it's going to sell.
With nonfiction, unless it's a memoir, that's true. Because nonfiction books is actually also have to write a nonfiction book proposal, which is a really long document. What I did, I had been writing, I had a contract with a publisher to do martial arts books. I did 3 martial arts books. There was another book left in the contract unspecified, so I pitched a book on supernatural folklore. And he, I had to sell him on it because he didn't want that. That book outsold the martial arts books 30-1.
I'm retiring at the end of the year from the martial arts industry. So
I am retired from the martial arts industry too. Okay, you had a, yes. Just remember, we have 3 minutes, so we.
I know there are those big phenomenon that everybody loves, like the E.L. James and the 50 Shades of Grey. In your experience, is it possible to begin in the self-publishing space and transfer over to agents, or is there still a snobism about that?
No, I mean, because of E.L. James, because of The Martian, which was self-published, and a lot of other things were self-published, you can definitely move over. It's the hardest part is to move over a series you've already started in indie to traditional. Generally, what they want is something new, but your indie background is no longer looked down upon in publishing. There have been too many indie success stories, and there are so many hybrid writers right now. A good example is my friend Scott Sigler. He's #1 bestseller, New York Times bestseller. He is a hybrid writer. He writes, some stuff that pitches to his agent, and some stuff where his agent said, I can never sell that, and he self-publishes. And he's making a fortune off the self-published stuff. Galactic Football League, who knew, But yes, it used to be a closed door between indie and self-publishing. That radically changed starting around 2008. The rise of social media. And that's another thing in the written query. It should also explain, there should be some mention that you are on social media, because if you're not, like my own agent, for example, Sarah Crow, if she gets a query that does not have any kind of a social media tag in the signature, she won't read the query, because it suggests that the person has no idea how important social media is to publishing. And a lot of publishers won't accept writers who are not positioned on social media. If you're not on social media, get on social media. Any other quick questions? We have like a minute. Yes?
I follow you on Facebook. Is that you or is that somebody else?
We've got it back from the hacker finally. And that was only like 5 days ago, or 6 days ago. But no, yes, I was hacked for 3 months. And that,
I wondered, because, she was hilarious, but...
and wildly inappropriate at times.
But
Yeah.
she didn't sound like you.
No, it was not me. Yes?
In the query, would you use the same conversational tone that you did in your pitch? Would that be a good way to?
A little less so, but still fairly conversational. The reason I don't say as much as because a conversational tone tends to be a little more verbose than a query. And your query, when printed out, should print out on a single page. Just as it was back in the old days when you used to mail a query off, it still has to be one page. Because in most agencies, what they do is they the assistants print out the queries. They weed out the ones the editor, their boss should not look at. And, you know, like, so my agent, for example, gets 160 queries a day on average. So she has assistants who go through and vets them. And she gets probably 10 of those queries a week. And they, you know, there are a lot of hoops to jump through. It has to fit on one page. It has to be businesslike, but it should be a somewhat conversational tone too. Never obsequious, never like pleading or apologetic, none of that crap. So, we're done? Okay, wow, that was fast. If anyone has any other questions, I'll be around. Feel free to catch me in the hall.